Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. So, we're back with our morning wrap, which of course brings you some interesting news that you might have missed out on whilst you were catching up on some sleep. And now, Sunday's double headers featuring, of course, the Gujarat Titans and the LSG first up, and then after that, Rajasthan Royals versus SRH. Both had plenty of interesting talking points coming out of the matches, and of course, both ended up in wins for GT and SRH. The SRH win being a lot more surprising, but there were many who felt that there were decisions that could have been taken that may have actually led to the other teams winning. So let's start with the first match, and that is, of course, GT versus LSG. Now, GT had put up a pretty mammoth total, but LSG were really at one point looking likely to chase it. And unfortunately, they had sent Deepak Huda, who's been pretty out of form, at number 3 once Kyle Mayers had departed, and that really took a lot of momentum out of the innings because Huda ended up scoring a run ball 11, and within the Sehwag was not too happy about that decision to actually send Huda, who he said was an out of form batsman. In fact, this is what he had said whilst commentating. He said that Ayush Badoni had scored 21 of 11 balls when he came in. Now, if he had arrived at the time when Mayers had gotten dismissed, he could have increased the pace of scoring as well. Whose decision was that to send Huda ahead? Was it the captain? Was it the coach? Was it the mentor or team management? Who sent Huda at 3? It really should have been an informed batsman who was actually taking guard at that point. And it's hard to agree with his point because the new opening pair of Kyle Mayers and Quinton de Kock had actually gotten LSG off to a flyer, and the pitch didn't look like it had any significant demons. But unfortunately, Huda's form has been such as of late that he just could not get going at any given point of time. Scored a run ball 11, then was dismissed. And by that point, the momentum had well and truly shifted because the asking rate was just too high for LSG, and therefore it was no surprise when they ended up on the losing side of things. Another interesting thing that was worth noting was, of course, the match between SRH and Rajasthan Royals. Rajasthan would have felt they had that game in the bag, having scored the highest total ever in the IPL at the Sawai Mansingh Stadium. Unfortunately, what happened was that they needed five runs to win, or rather 4 runs to win off the last ball, thanks to, of course, a no ball that was bowled by Sandeep Sharma, and Abdul Samar ended up getting that with a 6. Now, obviously, that was many interpreted that to mean that this was actually a really good batting track, and that maybe Rajasthan could have gotten a few more runs. So when our skipper Sanju Samson was asked, did they score too few runs, he said very simply, he said, that's an interesting question and I don't really know the answer, which was such a confusing response that it actually left the commentators silent for a few seconds before they then moved on to the next question. And of course, one of those questions revolved around what was it that for him was the game-changing moment. And he said that, he didn't really put too much stock on things, but he did say that the no ball which Sandeep Sharma bowled off what was supposed to be the last ball was that, game-changing moment. Because this is what he said on Sandeep Sharma. He said that, look, he's won us a game from a similar situation before, and he's referring to the game against CSK. He's saying he had done it again today, but then that no ball ruined everything. But of course, you can pin the blame and say that yes, that no ball should have been defended. But the fact that RR had even gotten to the point where they could actually have realistically given away a win in that last over, despite having 214 runs on the board, just speaks to a rather poor bowling performance all around, with the exception of maybe someone like a Yuzi Chahal, who finally found some form, but in another losing cause. That being said, Sunrisers' win kept them alive in the tournament, and one of the people who was rather complimentary of them was surprisingly David Warner, the former SRH skipper, who was rather unceremoniously dumped by the team, many would argue. In fact, he took to Twitter and actually praised the team. He said that how good's the IPL? Glenn Phillips take a bow, well played Sunrisers. And Glenn Phillips actually had probably what was the game-changing moment, striking it around 300 plus, and really took the momentum away from Rajasthan. I mean, Sunrisers had batted well throughout, but that one knock did make a big difference because it came at such a brisk pace on what was quite clearly a very good batting track that it put SRH back in contention. And as things stand, there is no team that has officially been eliminated from the IPL as of yet. Every single team realistically can make it to the playoffs. Now, switching our focus from the world of cricket to the world of football, and there were some pretty interesting results in a few league games yesterday. First off, you had Arsenal beat Newcastle away from home 2-0, which means that they are currently only 1 point behind Manchester City, who sit atop the Premier League table, albeit it must be noted that Arsenal have played a game more. So, assuming City win that game in hand, it'll be a 4-point lead for them. So, you could say that mathematically it isn't over till it's over, but it does seem to be advantage City. Thankfully for Arsenal, they are getting some results to ensure that City don't canter to the league. There is some bit of pressure on them. Another shock result, this time featuring another club from Manchester, and it's Manchester United, who ended up slumping to a rather tame 1-0 loss, courtesy of a David De Gea error that gifted West Ham and Said Benrahma a goal in the 27th minute. They couldn't find a response to that, ended up losing, and right now their chances of finishing in the top four, well, they're very much in danger because they're only 1 point behind Liverpool, and that's a 1 point gap that can be made up very easily. United do have a couple of tricky fixtures coming up, so they need to find some form and find it soon if they are to end the season in a successful note, which would of course mean returning to the Champions League, besides of course winning the Carabao Cup, which they had earlier this year. PSG, also another team who would be looking to add a league title to what would be a rather disappointing season, ended up beating Troyes 3-1, and this was a notable win for them because they did so without Lionel Messi, who has been suspended for 2 weeks, of course, due to that unauthorized trip to Saudi Arabia. They won 3-1. They're currently 6 points clear at the top of Liga with 4 games left. So it seems all but a foregone conclusion at this point, because 6 points, 4 games means they just need to win maybe 2 games and get a draw, which is pretty easy for them in Liga, truth be told, because there's just such an embarrassment of riches at the club vis-a-vis every other side. Switching our focus now from the world of football to the world of Formula 1 and also a little bit of tennis news, but first Formula 1. Max Verstappen won the Miami Grand Prix for the second straight year running, and he beat out teammate Sergio Perez in a rather impressive manner, I must add. It was a good race because it was pretty strategically poised. Verstappen had started, earlier. He'd started on the hard tires because he was starting P9, did a long stint, came onto the medium tires, then made a charge towards the end. Whereas for Perez, he started on the mediums because he was starting on pole position, then switched to the hards. In the end, couldn't catch his teammate. Second place, Verstappen remains atop the championship standings, and the person who finished third should not surprise you because it was Fernando Alonso, who continues to actually prove that in the right car, he can very well be up there with the best of the current lot as well. Last but not least, the little bit of tennis news I promised you. Andy Murray has won a tennis title for the first time since 2019. Now, it is worth noting that it came at an ATP Challenger event in France, and it wasn't an ATP Tour event, but it does boost Murray's hopes of actually, being seeded come, of course, Wimbledon, because it seems unlikely that he would be able to be seeded for the French Open because there's just so little time. But if he wins, gets a few more wins under his belt, has a decent run in Paris, he would actually be in chance of being a seeded player come Wimbledon, which would of course be a good thing for them because they would need some local heroes. There's no Emma Raducanu this time around. She's going to be out for a while. Having Murray there would actually help boost the presence of the local sales. So it would be a good thing. Can it happen? That's something that remains to be seen. But with that, we bring an end to this edition of the Morning Wrap with Sports Today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you enjoy our work, please don't forget, like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon, leave us a comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and don't forget to download the SportsTech app for more such breaking news updates from the world of sports at the tip of your fingers. Plus, if you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos we've done, and stay tuned to Sports Today through the day. For now, from my side, goodbye.